නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස යම් භික්කවේ සදේව කස්ස ලෝකස්ස සමාරකස්ස සබ්‍රහ්මකස්ස සස්සමන බ්‍රාහ්මනියා පජාය සදේව මනුස්සාය දිත්තං සුතං මුතං විඤ්ඤාතං පත්තං පරියේසිතං අනුවිචරිතං මනසා තමහං න ජානාමීති වදෙය්‍යං තං මමාස්ස මුසාතිති. Dear venerable brother, venerable sisters, Dhamma friends, as you all know, we have taken Kalakarama Sutta as the topic for this series of Dhamma sermons. This particular sutta is available in the Anguttara Nikaya, that is the numerical discourses of the Buddha, and particularly dealing with some very special characteristics of the Buddha. So as we discussed yesterday, so the sutta happened, or the elaboration happened while Buddha was living at Saketa, and he was dwelling in Kalakarama, that is the place offered by a certain person called Kalaka, who is the father-in-law of Chula Subhadra, and that story we discussed yesterday. And then many monks were discussing about certain sublime qualities of the Buddha, how his arrival to the Saketa has become a great blessing to the residents, and many have become Buddhists, practicing Buddhists, and now there are many monks also gathered, and now those monks started discussing about those qualities. And again the kind of conversion happened in this Saketa area because of the arrival of the Buddha and the Sangha. At that occasion, Buddha arrives that area, that the place, assembly hall, and now he is delivering this Kalakarama Sutta. As we discussed, this sutta is divided into 5 areas, so we call it as 5 planes. Starting with Sarvajñata Bhumi, the plane talking about the omniscience of the Buddha. Then Shrinastrava Bhumi, we are talking about the complete eradication of defilements, complete eradication of all the influxes, asavas in his mind. And then the Satya Bhumi, discussing about the truth, so how he understood the truth and how he is defining a truth, so that kind of an aspect. And then number 4, Sunyata Bhumi, talking about the emptiness, and last the Tadi Bhumi, talking about the suchness. So now we are in 3rd part, that we are talking about the truth, Satya. And yesterday we touch certain areas, so what people are typically taking as truth, what people believe to be truth, and how such different views are popping up in their minds in general. So another area we can discuss related to this are what we call as the Vipassana, where how our sense organs are working in a way, and how true are they telling. Now say for example, through the eyes we can see, so how true is our vision? Through the ears we can hear, how true is our hearing in a way? So likewise smelling, tasting, touching, so how true they are? What we see is really there is, what we hear is really there is, or are there any distortions? Are there any defects? So as you get old, you may get some vision problems. So that is not what we are talking here. So now I am also wearing the spectacles. But even wearing spectacles, even wearing all these instruments, is our vision perfect? So these are another area, because through the senses, when we are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching particularly, so we are introducing some sort of a permanence into the picture, because our eyes are not capable of seeing the momentary passing away of objects. So even though momentary passing away or momentary arising and passing away, momentary dissolution happens every time, but our eyes are incapable of recognizing it, grasping it. Similarly, the ears also, nose, tongue, body, because this eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, those senses we can say are very much immature. They are not so sophisticated. So the ranges are there in which those senses are working. So outside those ranges, they are incapable of grasping, and very subtle differences, subtle changes are incapable of knowing. So therefore, that's why when we see, we typically see things as they are permanent. Hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, also same. So therefore, at the perceptive level, we are going through some kind of a distortion. Now, we all know this light bulb. So we can see it as continuously lighting, but probably you all know it's continuously switching off and on, off and on. Do you know that? So it's an alternative current. So at one half it is being on and the other half it is off. But our eyes see it as permanently on, permanently lighting. So likewise, so our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body are incapable of seeing the reality by the naked eye. So therefore, at the perceptive level, we are going through some kind of a perception, wrong perception, and that is what we call as the sanya vipallasa, where some distortion, kind of an inversion happen at the perception. Anicce nicca sanya. So when things are impermanent, we perceive it as permanent. When things are kind of suffering and unsatisfactory, we perceive it as satisfactory. And when things are non-self, we perceive them as self. Similarly, when things are kind of loathsome, we perceive them as beautiful. So kind of a distortion is there. So once we gather such a wrong data, based on that we are thinking. So our thinking also subject to different kinds of distortions. Our thinking is also based on some erroneous data. So the thinking level also we go wrong, what we call as the chitta vipallasa. And after thinking, we come to a certain kind of a conclusion, which is based on wrong thinking, erroneous type of thinking, and based on wrong data. So the conclusion also mostly wrong, distorted. We call as the ditti vipallasa. So therefore, the different views arise in our minds are typically with distortions, with defects. And therefore, we can't say what we know, what we hear, what we see, smell, taste, touch, think are perfectly true. So we have to come to another level, that we have to be in a way humble to understand that these senses are very limited. This capacity of the senses are quite limited, and the data gathered are quite distorted. And based upon that, once we come to a conclusion, that also could be defective. That's a kind of a fact that we need to honestly, humbly understand. So this vipallasa is another area, therefore Buddha thoroughly touched, explain us. So we need to try to understand this impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, non-self, and by mere our senses, typical senses, we are unable to do that. So that's why we need to develop certain other type of faculties to understand that. So that's why we are developing mindfulness, that's why we are developing certain amount of concentration, maybe balancing of the effort, and then using such a mind, now we are trying to recognize this reality, seeing things as they truly are. So that understanding is not using an instrument, but using certain of spiritual faculties that we develop into our mind, through such a mind, now we are going through another type of an experiment. Ariya Pariyesana, a noble quest, a noble type of an experiment. Anyway, nowadays, even the science is capable of recognizing, say, things are impermanent, things are transient, but the problem is that the scientists don't become arahants. Isn't it? Even though they understand all that, and through the very sophisticated instruments they see how impermanent they are, they probably use it to win a gold medal, Nobel Prize, etc. And even from that boost their ego, maybe earn some money, but not coming to the Dhamma, not coming to the spiritual side, but they are going through a mundane way of achieving. But as the spiritual seekers, so they are going in a different path. So they are trying to understand these realities, these truths, mindfully, through the faculties, spiritual faculties, and that understanding actually leads to non-grasping, dispassion, letting go, abandoning, relinquishment, ultimately the freedom to the mind. So that's in a way the difference. The mundane type of understanding, the mundane type of knowledge, always leading us to grab something, hold something, maybe to boost the ego. But on the other hand, the spiritual side, that understanding, that knowledge, that wisdom, always leading to dispassion, abandonment, relinquishment, and then the freedom. So there are two parts actually. Now, with respect to these three truths, also Buddha mentioned that they are in a way really a truth. Impermanence, suffering and non-self, separately Buddha mentioned in certain suttas, either the arising of a Tathagata or not, they are truth. They are there. They are very much like the Dhammata. Kind of, let me tell the certain words mentioned here. Very strong words he used there. Uppadava Tathagatanam, Anuppadava Tathagatanam, Tithava Dhatu, Dhammattitata, Dhamma Niyamata, Sabbe Sankhara, Anicca. Similarly, he mentioned Uppadava Tathagatanam, Anuppadava Tathagatanam, Tithava Dhatu, Dhammattitata, Dhamma Niyamata, Sabbe Sankhara, Dukkha. Similarly, Sabbe Dhamma, Anatta. So therefore, these are kind of universal truths. So they are not the inventions of the Buddha, but they are there. So either the arising of the Buddha or not arising of the Buddha doesn't matter. These are very much like the facts. So they are very much like the element still exists. They are kind of they persist in this world. Things are impermanent. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. That's a reality. And then that's a kind of a stableness. And stableness of the Dhamma. Dhamma Niyamata. It's a fixed course of Dhamma. And therefore, so this impermanent suffering and non-self, what we typically call as the universal characteristics, are in a way kind of a truth, kind of a stableness of the Dhamma, kind of a fixed course of Dhamma, and it is irrelevant whether Buddha arises or not, so that reality exists. So that is something that we can separately understand. And so Buddha arises and he revealed it in a way. He opens it up, and it was very much like not paid enough attention. So through his own spiritual knowledge, understanding, he reveals this fact, this truth, and invite us to see it. Ehi passiko. So I have seen it, so why don't you see it? So he is presenting it to us in simple forms, explaining it to us in simple forms, for us also to see it, isn't it? So then we also are trying our best. Okay, we are also developing mindfulness, we are also developing concentration, paying attention to different phenomena, and we also do our own experiment or investigation. Probably as of our investigation, then we also may understand, yes, what Buddha mentioned is truth. He has understood it, he has revealed it, he has showed us, he has preached it. Yes, it is true. So then it is our own knowledge, not a copied, borrowed knowledge from the Buddha. Rather, we ourselves have seen it, experientially we have seen it, then it's more deeply understood in ourselves. So, what would be the result? Maybe dispassion, maybe relinquishment, abandonment, the freedom. So these are differently working in a way. So this knowledge, this wisdom is not for grasping, not for holding, not for boosting our ego, rather to abandon that delusion, abandon that grasping, and to be free, relinquish the grasping, and then the mind become free, not holding on to anything, not being stressed up, rather being free. So that's the difference. And another area actually Buddha emphasized in a similar fashion is the idappaccheta. Probably you have heard about the idappaccheta. The typical term is paටිච්චසමුප්පාද, dependent origination. So that is also he particularly mentioned as this kind of a statement. Let me tell that also. Upādāva tathāgatānaṁ anuppādāva tathāgatānaṁ tithāvasā dhātu dhammaṭṭhitatā dhamma niyāmatā idappaccheta. Jāti bhikkave jāti paccaya bhikkave jara marana. So for the jara marana, for the say aging and the death, the condition is the birth. So it's a fact. So it is completely independent whether Buddha arises or not. It is a fact. So if something is born, it is subject to aging, subject to death. No option, no excuse. Either Buddha there or not, doesn't matter. It's a fact. So he elaborated to the different levels. So I have taken just one example, which is proving this truth, proving this causality, proving this idappaccheta. This happens because of this. Imasmin sati idang hoti, imasu pada idang uppajjati, imasmin asati idang nohoti, imasa nirodha idang nirujjati. So that is the theory. With the arising of this arises. When this exists, this also exists. With the arising of this also arises. And when this does not exist, this also does not exist. With the passing away of this also passes away. Sometimes we can use that instead of this. When this exists, that also exists. With the arising of this, that also arises. Just to indicate the conditionality, the dependent nature. Avijja paccaya sankhara. With the arising, when avijja exists, formations can exist. With the arising of avijja, with the arising of delusion, the ignorance, then the formations, fabrications also arise. When ignorance is not available, formations can't exist. With the passing away of the ignorance, then the formations, fabrications all pass away. Avijja paccaya sankhara. Sankhara paccaya viññānaṁ. So likewise we can elaborate. So what we call as the dependent origination. So this is another very interesting, very deep area. So we, as practitioners, we have to try to understand it not only theoretically but practically, and that is one area in our Vipassana practice. So the point is, so when we understand such a teaching, then we are going to another level of understanding. So that is explained in the Kalalgoda Sutta at a very interesting way. So at once Venerable Kaccana, so he arrived the Buddha, he approached the Buddha, and he is asking a question about Sammaditthi. Bhante, what is right view? And there Buddha mentioned, so everything exists is one extreme, everything does not exist is another extreme. So typically we all come to a kind of a point where we say, okay, my mother exists. Oh, my mother passed away, now she does not exist. So the common way how we are referring. So likewise we can apply to existing or not existing to many things. So either we say something is existing or we say something is not existing. So this is the common dualistic way of thinking. Either good, either bad, either yes, either no, either true or false, either on or off. So very much like kind of a dualistic way of thinking. So that is where our mind is very much like programmed to look at things in a more dualistic way. Either good or bad, yes or no, exist or does not exist. So this is how our mind is very much like programmed to think. Now, so that leads to some sort of a grasping. So that's the problem. Referring is not merely the issue, but problem is, so that leads to grasping. So when things are existing and we like it, then we hold it, we grasp it, and we call it as me, myself, it belongs to me. So likewise we go to another level and ultimately end up with grasping, holding on to something, hooked up with something, trapped in something. Upaya upadana abhinivesa vinibaddoko ayam kaccana loko yebuhiyena. So Buddha therefore mentioned upaya upadana. So therefore our minds are either getting closer to phenomena, upadana, the mind is grasping phenomena, abhinivesa, mind go into it, vinibaddo, being shackled by it. So the mind is not free. So typically mind is working on this dualistic way. So as a result of that, mind used to grasp things, hold things, getting closer to things, trapped with things, adhere to things. Now, therefore, Buddha teaches Dhamma not taking these two extremes. So he is teaching Dhamma, Ubo ante anupagamma majjena tathagato dhamman deseti. Without taking any of these extremes, he is delivering Dhamma, preaching Dhamma in the middle. Imasming sati idang hoti, imasuppada idang uppajjati, imasming asati idang nahoti, imasa nirodha idang nirujjati. Same thing. Parisamuppada. Avidya pacca sankhara, sankhara pacca vijnana, vijnana pacca namarupa, namarupa pacca salayatana, salayatana pacca passo, passa pacca vedana, vedana pacca tanha, tanha pacca upadana. Now we come to the upadana. So he is revealing us the formula in a way. He is revealing us how this grasping happen, how eye-making happen, how mind-making happen, how this tangle happen, how we get trapped, how this whole process happen because of ignorance taking in a way. Because of ignorance, the formations are happening. When formations are there, then the consciousness is tackled or consciousness is tracked or consciousness is trapped, tangled in name and form. Now the kind of a dynamic process may evolve there, and then our six sense bases are agitated, triggered. Now it is into the level of interacting with the outside world, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. The interactions are going on. It causes the passa, the contact, so that causes the feelings. Feelings are now we are grasping. Feelings are causing craving and then we are grasping. So likewise he is beautifully explaining this causal reaction, how things are rolling out, how things are developing, and ultimately we get trapped. Ultimately we are shackled, hold on to something, trapped into something. And similarly he explained the opposite also. Avijjayat deva asesa viraga nirodho sankhara nirodha. Sankhara nirodho vijnana nirodha. Vijnana nirodho nama rupa nirodha. So if we are able to abandon this ignorance, if we are able to arouse wisdom instead, then the formations can be abandoned. When they are abandoned, okay, now consciousness is not tangled with name and form. Now the six sense bases are coming to a kind of a standstill. It's no more grasping, no more eye making, no more birth, death, suffering. So the whole process stopped. So he is explaining that as well. So this whole process is something prevalent in this world. It is independent from the arising of the Buddha. So this Appacheda, this principle, this causes this, is an eternal truth. And that is also something that Buddha is revealing. But it is independent of the Buddha even. Uppadava tathagatānaṁ anuppādava tathagatānaṁ. Either Buddha arises or not, tithāvasa dhātu. This is the kind of element. Dhammattitata. So this is the stableness of the Dhamma. Dhamma niyamata. This is the fixed cause of Dhamma. Idappaccheta. The specific conditionality of the Dhamma. So this also therefore is something that we can understand, a kind of a truth which is working in this world. So in one sense we can see the impermanent, suffering and non-self are kind of operative principles in this world, kind of a truth. On the other hand, this idappaccheta is another deeper truth that Buddha is actually explaining to us, making it more clear, more easy to understandable. But that is the principle which is very much like governing this whole existence, we can say. Now when someone is having this kind of an understanding, so then he might not use the terms like I exist, he exists, or this exists, that exists. Rather, he come to an understanding this, everything is arising and passing away, everything is kind of momentary. So you can't say things are existing eternally. Things are very much like inconstant, transient. So what is arising is just a mere dukkha is arising. Suffering is arising. What is passing away is just the suffering is passing away. Dukkhameva uppajjamanam uppajjati, dukkham nirujjamanam nirujjati. So we are coming to another deeper kind of an understanding in a way, in a yogi. So more he realizes the Buddha's teaching, more he practices Buddha's teaching, and he may understand things are utterly transient, so unsatisfactory, can't find any inner core, anything substantial, any eternal soul or self. So what is arising is merely suffering arising, what is passing away is just merely suffering passing away. And he has no doubt about it. Na kankati na vichikicchati aparappacchaya jnanamevasya etta hoti. About this process now he has no doubt. Na kankati na vichikicchati, he has no perplexity. Aparappacchaya jnanamevasya etta hoti. Even without someone else's support, now he can come to the full enlightenment and he can further develop that wisdom. Ettavatako kaccana sammaditthi hoti. Now this is kaccana is the sammaditthi. Now Buddha is giving the best form of sammaditthi here. We can say the supramundane sammaditthi. So you can see the sammaditthi particularly attributed to the panya, wisdom. So here also very beautifully in Kaccanagotta Sutta, Buddha emphasized how this idappaccheda, say parissamuppada, further leading to the proper understanding in oneself. That is the sammaditthi. That is the proper view, correct view, right view. Now, what happened before that? So if before we come to this level, so people are arguing, people are, debating, all that is there. So that is another interesting area. So sometimes in certain suttas that is highlighted. So let me get few examples. For example, in the Sutta Nipata Attaka Vagga, Chulavyuha Sutta, So different forms of arguments, different forms of logical reasoning. So those are actually taken up and sort of explained by the Buddha, how people are getting to wrong views, kind of dogmatic type of views. Nacha ahang etang tatiyanti brumi yatahu bahala mitu anya manyang sakan sakan ditti makan susaccang tasmahi baloti pajandahanti. So I will just give the English translation here. Not indeed do I say that this is valid, whereby they mutually called each other fools. They consider their own dogmatic view as the truth, hence do they call the other a fool. Now, they are thinking based on their limited experience, and through that limited experience, they strongly grasp that limited understanding, and now they call the other is a fool. I am the wise person. So I am wise, I know the truth, you are a fool. So this is how they come into the debate. So in a way, so if he is able to win the debate, so everybody is considering, oh, that is the truth. What he is saying is the truth. So therefore, Buddha denies this kind of a truth because it is dependent on the ability to debate. Say, for example, two people are debating each other. So if someone is winning the debate, whatever he say is being accepted by the others as the truth. So that means if someone is capable of properly convincing others, debating and, nicely presenting, advertising and having many, winning the election, that is the truth. Is it really the truth? So therefore, merely taking something out of the debate by logical reasoning, properly convincing, is difficult to say as the truth. So therefore Buddha say, I am not going to say that is the truth. Typically people are debating based upon their limited experience. That experience also taken by the faculties. Are the faculties telling the truth? We already discussed the Vipassana, right? So the faculties, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. So they are not telling the truth. So they are giving us a distorted view. Based on that distorted view, now the people are talking, okay, I am the best, I know the truth, you are an idiot, you have failed. I won. So you all guys should accept what I say. I am the master. So this is how typically things are happening. So Buddha say, I can't accept this kind of a truth. So this is not the way of accepting a truth. So if someone is forcefully converting and saying, okay, what I say you should accept, otherwise I kill you. Otherwise I dispel you, expel you, punish you. So these are different ways that we are trying to convince sometimes. Forceful conversions, forceful convincing, or bribing, and many different ways that we are trying to impose a certain kind of a view on the others. So therefore, that kind of a truth is something that Buddha denies. So he simply says, this is not the real truth. And another area, Naheva Sacchani Bahuni Nana, Anyatra Sanyaya Nichani Loki, Takkancha Dittisu Pakappayitva, Satcham Musati Dvaya Dhamma Mahu. The same sutta, Chulavyuha Sutta. There is no diverse truths which in the world are eternal, apart from perception. So that means he is saying that all these kind of truths are based on the perception. So they recognize through the eye, through the ear, through the nose, through the tongue, body, they recognize. Through the faculties. So they are based on the perception. Having formulated theories accordance with the logic, they have arrived at the twofold categories called the truth and the false. So based upon their limited experience, based upon their faculties, distorted views. Now they say this is the truth, this is the false. So therefore we can see, so people are getting into arguments, people are kind of condemning others, telling that I am the one only knowing the truth, others are all fools. Now these are the typical way that the world is going through. So the perception is creating a lot of friction. Actually, during last time also we discussed, so how the perception is creating a lot of friction in the world. That's a beautiful verse in the Magandhya Sutta. Sanya virattasana santiganta. So if we are able to have kind of a dispassionate view about perception, then there is no any tanglement. Sanya virattasana santiganta. But on the other hand, if we take sanya, perception, as the truth, as the reality, then we are in trouble. Those are the people who is wandering in this world, creating a lot of friction. So therefore, if we are coming to a kind of a conclusion based upon mere thinking, based upon mere reasoning, based upon mere logical reasoning, mere fabrication, so then we have to think about such a view, such a truth. Are we really coming to the truth, arriving in the truth, or are we being tangled in it? Tangled in a kind of a mess. So for Buddha's teaching, in a way, help us to calm down the mind, relax the mind, tranquilize the mind. So his way of understanding is not merely based on the reasoning. Reasoning is also there. He's not denying reasoning. So we don't need to misunderstand that the reasoning is a bad thing. So if you refer Chunky Sutta, so Buddha explained us there are different ways of finding the knowledge. So one is the ruchi. Then when we have certain liking, we have certain desire. So when someone is telling something and our desire is agreeing with that sort of a view, then we like to approach him, we like to inquire, we like to learn. So this is how one way of learning things. Ruchi. And then saddha, a faith. So I believe in someone. I believe on a teacher. So whatever he says is something that I am trusting, I am believing. So I am now acquiring that knowledge based upon the faith. Saddha, ruchi. Anussava. Anussava is something coming from generation to generation. So our parents having some knowledge, grandparents had some knowledge, it is coming from generation to generation. So I also believe that. I am also in that same generation, so I am believing that. So the kind of oral tradition, all those Upanishads and all that different knowledges coming from generation to generation, so that is the Anussava. Saddha, ruchi, anussava, akara parivitakka. Akara parivitakka is the reasoning, logical reasoning. So you compare things, you analyze things, and then you come to a kind of a conclusion, and that is the akara parivitakka, based on logical reasoning. And then the ditti nidana kanti, the last one, where someone is propagating kind of a view, and your way of thinking is aligning with that, so you adhere to it and you acquire it. Now the argument is, all these 5 methods, Buddha say, might carry the truth, might not carry the truth. So it may be true, but it might not be true. Now say for example, you believe on someone and you are quite faithful and you believe that knowledge and you are acquiring that knowledge. And Buddha say, the truth may be there or might not be there. Could be there or could not be there. Similarly, you may desire someone's teaching and accordingly you are following that. The truth could be there or could not be there. So what you believe might not have the truth or might have the truth. So likewise, kind of a unsure area is there, shady area is there with all these 5 methods. Either you are going with faith, with your desires, likings, or coming through the generations, or just mere logical reasoning, or according to a particular type of a view. Truth could be there or could not be there. So therefore he is inviting us to have a kind of an open mind. Always have an open mind. So what we follow today might have the truth. You may arrive the truth or you might not. So if someone is coming and telling you with proper reasoning and inviting you to practice, okay, hey, look at, so you better practice like this, then you are able to arrive. We have to have such a kind of an opening. So that is a very open-minded attitude that he is inviting us to have. And on top of that, he is discussing about this practical approach. So one is, rather than merely based on these 5 methods, now he is inviting us to develop certain spiritual faculties. You are developing, say, mindfulness, you are developing concentration, you are developing proper faculties, balancing the faculties. Now you yourself is now trying to understand things. Now he is in a way promoting this experiential knowledge. Not the mere superficial knowledge, but he is promoting this experiential knowledge. So Satipatthana is merely based on that experiential knowledge. It is not merely based on faith, but you need to have faith also. It is not based on the ruchi, your desire, but you need to have some amount of a desire as well. And it is coming from the generation, this is coming from the Buddha, it's an ancient teaching. You better acquire that knowledge as well, not entirely denied. So likewise, you can see all these 5 methods are also in a way to some extent included, not utterly excluded, but you need to go through it, you need to practice it, you need to internalize it, and then only you can arrive it. So therefore in Chanki Sutta, it's a really interesting sutta. We, I think, already discussed that one time in Kalalgoda. So the Buddha talks about the discovery of the truth, arrival of the truth, and living according to the truth. So very different interesting areas are there. So there also you can see he's talking about the truth. Now let us come to the sutta, the Kalakarama Sutta. So in the Kalakarama Sutta, so Buddha talks about this same fact in a different way. Now before explaining that, I have to explain another kind of a logic prevailed in India. Janami, na janami, janami cha na cha janami, neva janami, na janami. Okay. Now if we take this example again, this light, now it is switched on. Right? All agree? It is switched on. Now if I ask someone to switch off, okay, we can switch off. So on, off are the 2 states. Okay, on one state, off another state. Someone can say on and off. On and off. Another state. Not on, not off. Another state. We call this Chatuskotika Tattva. Logic based on the Chatuskoti. Now typically on-off is something we all can understand. Either on, either off. But when someone is telling on, off, not on, not off. You got it? Now similarly here, janami, I know. Na janami, I don't know. That we can understand, right? I know, I don't know. Third one is, I know as well as I don't know. Fourth one is, not knowing. That means not knowing and not ignorant in a way. That means don't know and don't ignorant also. So this is a very completed kind of a logic, and this is how it is actually the this kind of reasoning developed in India, ancient India, so it also has certain very deep logic. So typically we know only the dualistic kind of a logic, on-off logic, knowing or not knowing, but they have taken it to another level. Now same if we apply to a existence, for example. So what happened after the death? So one can say, I exist. Another can argue, I do not exist. Another one can say, I exist and do not exist. And the fourth one, the last one, not existing and not existing. Really confusing in a way, but so now Buddha is taking this logic to the Kalakarama Sutta. Now he is denying all the latter three. Now because he said clearly, Yam bhikkhave sadevakassa lokassa samarakassa sabbrahmakassa sasamana brahmaniya pajaya sadeva manussaya. In this world with the gods, with the maras, with the brahmas, and this folk in this human realm, where the manussa, the human, whole population, dittang sutam mutang vinyatam pattam pariyesitang anuvicharitam manasa. That means whether they see, hear, from the nose, tongue, body, they cognize or they sense, and through the mind they cognize. That means dittang, sutang, mutang, vinyatam, pattang. Vinyatam. Then pattang. That means they attain pariyesitang. They sought after anuvicharitam manasa. And they pondered over and through the mind and come to a conclusion. Tamahang janami. I know that. Probably you can remember that we were discussing this point some time ago about the Sarvajñata Jnana, talking about his omniscience. So he is declaring kind of a way, so whatever these people, through the eyes what they see, through the ear what they hear, through the nose, tongue, body what they sense, through the mind what they think, I know that. It's a kind of a statement that he is declaring. Probably you can remember. And then he further taking it to another level, tamahang abhanyasing. So I know it's better than them. Not to that level. I know that how they are thinking, that also I know. But I know better than how they are thinking. So this is a kind of a statement that he is making, talking about his omniscience, where so through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, we can also know something, as say the gods, maybe the celestial beings, maybe the Brahmas, maybe the Devas, maybe the Maras, maybe the humans. They all can see, smell, taste, touch, think. They also can ponder. They also can think a lot and attain. That all Buddha know. It's a kind of a statement that he makes at the initial stage of this Kalakarama Sutta, and that is considered as the omniscience. Now he declared that, right? I know that. So then if he say, I don't know that, then that is false, right? So because he already declared, I know that, I properly know that. And then when it comes to the Shinastra Bhumi, he say, even though I know that, I am not adhering to any of that. Isn't it? Na abhanyasing, abhanyasing, there's a beautiful term there. Anyway, even though he knows things, he is not adherent to things. He is not grasping things. That is another level he is explained at the Shinastra Bhumi. But at the Satya Bhumi, now he is denying all other three logics. So the first logic is only the thing he is now accepting, I know it. Now I am denying not knowing. I am denying knowing at not knowing. And I am denying not knowing as well as not knowing. It's So you can see that he is attacking in a way to that logic available in that time, maybe now also available, because he already confirmed that I know it. Now, if he is saying that I don't know, then it is a musa, that is a falsehood. And similarly, so let me read the Pali term here. Na janamiti vadeyang tang mamasa musa. If I say I don't know, it is a falsehood in me. Tamahang janamicha nacha janamita vadeyang tam passa thadisameva. If I say knowing as well as not knowing, that is also a falsehood. Tamahang neva janami na janami iti vadeyang tam mamasa kali. If I say not knowing, not knowing, so that is a fault in me. So basically he is further confirming I know it in simple terms. So this is what, according to the commentary, mentioned as the Satya Bhumi. So where he is so sure about it, in a way. He knows the truth. I know it. So it's a kind of a confirmation. So I have explained it, I have known it. If I say I don't know, it is a falsehood, because I know it. So therefore it's a very interesting way, by kind of a logical way, that he is presenting here in this Kalakarama Sutta. So in order to understand this logic, we need to explore a little bit of the Sutta. Various suttas are there in certain Brahmins particularly coming and arguing with the Buddha. So what happened to the Tathagata after death? So these are some different questions that sometimes approach the Buddha. So what happened to the Buddha, or what happened to the Tathagata after death? What happened to the Arahanta after the death? So these are some interesting or some confusing questions people sometimes ask. And so what was Buddha's answer? He say, I am not here to answer that. Tapaniya means, that means he is not taking these questions to the discussion, because it is not leading to any kind of understanding. Rather, it can further confuse the person. The asking person is based on the self-view actually. Like for example, Aggivachagotta is coming and asking these kind of questions, but Buddha remained silent. He didn't go to answer. So therefore, we don't need to think that Buddha is answering all the questions. So there are 10 questions that he didn't answer. So these are some of them. So when someone is asking whether the Tathagata exists after death, not exist after death, or existing and not existing after death, and not existing, not existing after death, Buddha is silent. So it's very confusing in a way, that how people are thinking, because they are with wrong views, and they are arguing, they are more into debating. So the kind of their understanding is based on the debating. Understanding is based on the logical reasoning. And they think I know, the others are fools. Only what I know is the truth, what others know are the wrong thing. So likewise they come to a kind of wrong dogmatic views. So that all Buddha denies. And basically he invites us to have a kind of an open mind. And his teaching, his Sammaditthi, can't have a trapped mind. That's another interesting thing. Now, all these different views, whoever arguing, whoever coming to the debate, help them to trap in them. They become victims to those views. They are trapped in those views. They are unable to abandon those views. But more we understand the Dhamma, more we practically experience the Dhamma, we have to go in an opposite direction. So more you understand impermanence, suffering, unsatisfactoriness or non-self, so you need to feel some relaxation in your mind, release of your mind, freedom of your mind. More you understand the idappaccheta, this patissamuppada, the same result has to happen. Because then you understand there is no person here, there is no being here, no self here. Things are happening according to a causality. So I can happen, I can make when ignorant thinking, but if the wisdom is there, there is no self. So you come to a tranquility, you come to a nippapancha, you come to a complete non-proliferation, calmness, silence, no formations. So therefore, the sammaditthi that Buddha explains has to lead to the freedom. So we as Buddhists, we as practitioners, sometimes we also get into arguments with others, maybe talking Dhamma, discussing Dhamma. But if we are thoroughly, properly practicing Dhamma, it always has to lead to dispassion. It always has to lead to relinquishment. It always has to lead to freedom in our mind. So we can't hold on to anything. So the sammaditthi is not holding on any dogmatic view. Rather, sammaditthi helps us to abandon things, relinquish things, letting go of things. That letting go also has to be very natural, not forceful, and the mind has to feel relaxed, calm, maybe unestablished, not holding, not grasping, and no friction, no stress. So that's the kind of a mentality that we have to aim like. So we are also practicing, and we need to recognize, okay, where I am leading towards the practice. So in certain suttas, like in the Katavattu Sutta, so Buddha say, so all these discussions, all these learnings, all these lending our eyes, lending our ears, paying attention, analyzing, association, all are aiming towards non-grasping state of mind. Non-grasping state of mind, release state of mind. Anupada chittassa vimukho. The liberation of the mind based upon non-grasping. So therefore, sammaditthi, the Buddha's teaching explained sammaditthi is quite different. So we can't compare that with typical views, other typical wrong views, because this sammaditthi, when someone is practicing, leading towards freedom. So mind can't have any friction, mind can't have any stress, mind can't have any grasping, tanglement, shackling or any such thing, but it has to lead to complete freedom. Okay, with that I conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening. Okay, today lunch dana, wishing Harshani good health and contentment on her birthday. May her spiritual aspirations be fulfilled in this very life. Passing merits to Ranjini's late mother. May the sansaric journey of Bantes, nuns and all yogis be short. Breakfast dana was offered by Nisansala or what's that? Niranjala. Niranjala to bless her husband Upulabhe Karunanayaka, who celebrated birthday on the 4th of March. Difficult to read anyway. Managed to read. Okay, with that, we can conclude today's Dhamma sermon, and today also we have spent fair amount of time practicing, listening to Dhamma and again discussing Dhamma. All that merit what we have accumulated, we share with all our passed away relatives, with all celestial beings and whoever in need of merits. And we wish these merits help us also to attain path, fruition, Nibbana. We will recite the traditional verses. Ettavataca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavataca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavataca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu sasanang. Sattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu desanang. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු මම් පරං ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදං වෝ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා සාදු සාදු සාදු